This is Dave, and I'm here with Ethan, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 46-inch.
On this week's episode, we interview the lead singer for the band Your Mother and world champion air guitarist Craig Billmeier.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Last week we aired the finale of our Weird Al album cover art top 5 list, and Dave, I only received a handful of death threats this time.
I think we're doing pretty good.
I think we're kind of on the right page. You know, the feedback was, maybe the self-titled album should have been a little bit higher, but I think all in all, people generally were okay with our top 5, which they should be because they have to be.
Yeah, I'm really happy with our top 5. Listening back to the episode, I really thought we did a good job in really explaining why we put things where we did, and I still stand by what we did.
Yeah, I think we did a nice job, and maybe in 15 years we can revisit it and look at all the other albums Al's put out since, and maybe we'll have a different opinion, but we'll have to see.
No guarantees that Gleep Glorp won't top the list. Now, I could get serious for a minute. A lot of serious, important things happened last week. For example, on Tuesday, March 10th, it was Mario Day. On Friday, March 13th, it was Friday the 13th. On Saturday, March 14th, it was Pi Day. And on Sunday, March 15th, it was the Ides of March, but it was also the release of the very important book, Weird Al Seriously.
What a crazy week it was.
Yeah, now we've talked to Kelly Phillips the last 2 weeks, and she did that amazing illustration on the cover. And prior to that, we talked to the author of the book, Lily Hurst. If you have not heard those 3 episodes, you are going to want to go back and listen to those. They're going to put you in the mood to read this book.
If you found yourself at home a lot last week or this week, what a great thing. Al has released the video of him performing Germs from Weird Al Yankovic Live, the VHS and DVD. It was, of course, recorded on the Touring with Scissors tour at the Marin County Civic Center in San Rafael, California on October 2nd, 1999. And as soon as he posted it, I looked at it and it said I was viewer number 5. So I don't know if that's really legit or if it just said that for everyone, but I was excited to be viewing it at such an early time.
So what you're saying is you sit there and you refresh Al's YouTube page until a new video comes up.
Just like Mike Minnick with our podcast, yes.
It's been a long time since I've actually seen that video. Obviously, this was, 20 years ago at this point. But one thing I noticed, just how young everyone in the band looked. Yeah. I actually made a comment to you, I think that, about how Jim Chemo West looks like a very young Jim Chemo West.
That was, of course, a reference to when we were mishearing Al saying our very own Jim Chemo West. We thought he was saying a very young Jim Chemo West on acoustic guitar for the intro for You Don't Love Me Anymore on the Strings Attached tour.
The other thing I noticed about it is that Al was not wearing his wedding ring. So this was even before he got married to Suzanne.
Wow. Or he just was having a break that night.
Hey, we were on a break.
And Dave, you alerted me to this. Al was featured in an online article from Under the Radar magazine.
Yes, it is in issue number 66, and it looks like it came out last September, but they just put the article online now, and Al talks about his favorite album, Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Now, that's the album that he learned to play accordion to, so this is a very important album to Al. Interestingly, in the article, he actually says, I don't know if this is my favorite album, but this is the one I want to talk about. So favorite, I guess you can kind of put in air quotes if you want, for that one.
I feel like a lot of people going into the article wouldn't expect Al to say Elton John.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. Amazingly, Al has not done an Elton John parody.
That's true. Of course, Al did cover a couple of Elton John songs on the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity tour.
That's right. He played Crocodile Rock, and he also played Funeral for a Friend / Love Lies Bleeding and Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting.
And he's never even used an Elton John song in a polka before.
It does say in the article that he almost did Ode to a Superhero to the song Rocket Man.
I would love to hear a demo version of him doing Ode to a Superhero to Rocket Man. That sounds really cool.
That does sound really cool. I'd like to see what kind of changes he would have to make to the lyrics to make that work with Rocket Man, but I could see it totally working.
That would be so great. All right, so Dave, speaking of favorite albums, obviously we'll take Al out of the equation. What's your favorite non-Weird Al album?
Oh, that's easy. It's Individual Life Insurance's Greatest Hits by the Rockin' Actuaries.
Is that a real album?
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you in part by the Don Ferlazzo Allstate Agency in Clifton Park, New York. If you drive like crazy or are about to buy you a condo, Don Ferlazzo and his team can help you with crazy good auto, home, and renter's insurance. Plus, the Ferlazzo Agency can protect all of your favorite stuff, like your copies of the Midnight Star fanzine.
You may think your insurance is good enough for now, but don't wait 1 more minute. Find the Ferlazzo Allstate on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or give them a call, 518-278-3543 for a free quote today. The Ferlazzo Agency. We sell insurance, and that's all. Dave, we like to talk about, our collections all the time and the different things that we've received or picked up. And I got a really cool thing this week I wanted to tell you about.
Ooh, please tell me.
Yeah, so you know how I've been trying to track down a full set of the Midnight Star Weird Al fanzines for many years. I only have a handful, and I saw 22 of them show up on eBay all in one auction, and I knew I had to win that. As soon as I saw it come up, I was like, I am gonna win this. And I set 5 alarms on my phone so I could bid, and I bid, and of course I won. So I've been just so excited for it to show up. So it shows up, I open the package, and not only are there 22 mint condition, beautiful Midnight Star fan magazines, but there is also a vinyl sleeve for this album called The Weird Album by this punk band Your Mother. And Dave, I'm sure you're familiar with this. I'm sure a lot of the bigger collectors in our audience are familiar with this. But this was this EP that this punk band Your Mother put out in the late 90s, and it is just so cool. I've actually been personally looking for this for many years, and so the fact that it just showed up in my mailbox unexpected, kind of blew my mind. I'm admiring the beautiful artwork. I'm checking out the back, and I see that one of the guys in the back, his name is Craigums, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. I feel like the guy who I bought this auction from's name was Craig. So I look, and sure enough, the guy who I bought this from is Craigums from Your Mother. I was so blown away. I just I still can't believe it.
That is so cool. That is amazing. I love that album. I actually have that album. I actually have 2 copies. I wish you would have told me you were looking for one. I could have got one for you.
That's amazing. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like we should totally get Craig on the show sometime.
Yeah, I would definitely be down for that.
I just, I started looking him up. He's like this air guitar champion. He's in other bands. He's like, he does, audio editing for a comedy record. He's just going to be too busy. I feel like we shouldn't even ask him.
I mean, I think we should ask him.
No, I don't want to bother him. I don't want to take up any of his time.
It's not that hard to just ask him.
Yeah, but I just feel weird. It's like, hey, I bought this stuff.
Let me ask him. Just let me ask him, okay?
Fine.
All right. Hey, Craig, you want to be on the program and do an interview with us?
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
All right, he said yes.
That was easy. Hi, Craig.
Hey there. Hi, guys.
Just to get your full name out there, of course, you do go by Craigums, but full name Craig Billmeier. We are so thrilled to have you join us on the podcast.
Super excited to be here.
I gotta say, Craig, I got a story too. I actually opened up my Your Mother album and I was listening to it the other day, and there's a handwritten note from you inside that thanked me for ordering it, and you gave me 3 stickers, and I still have those 3 stickers.
Wow.
They didn't melt to the vinyl over the years?
No, it says one is Your Mother, and one is, I'm not sure what it is. It's some kind of logo, and the other one says jogging is not a crime. So
yeah, don't you
take
forget
that
it.
to heart.
That's amazing.
Once again, 25 years later, thank you for buying that.
Well, it sounds like you bought 2 of them, Dave.
I did. I bought 2 of them.
Did you buy 2 at once, or did you buy them separately, and did I put a note in the second one as well?
You know what? I only have. That's an excellent question. I bought them both at the same time. I know that. I think there's only a note in one of them. I'll have to track it down my other one and find out.
Wouldn't that be awesome if I wrote the exact same note on the other record, knowing both of them were still going in the same sleeve?
Right. So, okay, when did this come out? When did the Weird album come out from your mother?
Well, would you like a backstory?
Absolutely.
All right. And here we go. There was, I believe the zine was called Ben is Dead. It was kind of a 90s zine in the 90s culture parlance. And in it, there was they were interviewing Weird Al. And they were in like some restaurant in Hollywood. And it was these two women who were editors of the zine. And they were talking to him just very conversationally. And they were asking him, of all these tribute comps that were coming out, which one would he most want to be on? And his retort was something along the lines of, when's someone going to make a tribute record for me? Possibly in that voice.
Right.
And we had already been doing covers of a couple of Weird Al songs. And immediately we all collectively were like, well, that's us. In the words of Phineas and Ferb, I know what we're going to do today. And so we kind of went, figured out, I think 6 songs total. We might have kind of loosely played maybe, 10 or something, but we narrowed it down to 6 specific songs. And in very true punk band fashion, we booked some time in the studio and recorded like 45 songs over 3 days.
Awesome.
Of which 6 of them were Weird Al covers. So they did not come out nearly as fantastic as our ambitions would have liked. But we were able to have some star musicians come on and play. We had tuba on one of the songs. So, I mean, by all accounts, it was definitely enough of a success. But I think it could have been better had we time. But then had we time, we might not have pursued something so stupid.
I mean, you're saying that it didn't live up to your expectations, and I got to listen to it for the first time because you very kindly included a CD of it for me, and I gotta say, I love this album. And if you thought it could have been better, I can't even imagine. And I would love to hear that one because my mind's already blown.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for receiving our album. Here are some stickers.
I did not get any stickers. I did get some beautiful Midnight Stars. But let's just go over the songs in the album. So there's Happy Birthday, Let Me Be Your Hog, Dare to Be Stupid, Fun Zone, I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead, and Everything You Know Is Wrong. Now, what was the reasoning behind these songs?
Well, a couple of them, like I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead, is such an anthem for when you're feeling like when I think of Weird Al and I think of that spirit of just total irreverence and just like just not caring about anything but having too much energy to keep that bottled up. And you're just like running wild in the streets and with an accordion, I guess, and that song just like embodied it. And then the other songs kind of had that same, like Happy Birthday is also that sort of like, it's just kind of got a bouncy, lack of a better term, punky vibe that's also kind of irreverent and a little dark, and then Fun Zone we used to open our own shows with.
Wow.
Before we realized that Weird Al was doing it. And that totally sounds like we inspired him to open his own show with his own song. Pretty sure that's not the case. But then Let Me Be Your Hog, I mean, that was an obvious choice.
Of course.
And because we had an extra 8 seconds on that 10-inch run-up. And then I think Everything You Know Is Wrong and Dare to Be Stupid. Well, Dare to Be Stupid is just the greatest song. And it's kind of in that I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead. It's just like a declaration.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's even Mark Mothersbaugh says that's the best Devo song ever written.
It is.
And then finally, Everything You Know Is Wrong was, I think, where we were like feeling ambitious and like, oh, we could pull it. That's a fun one. And it's also one of his really great storytelling kind of songs. And where it's just like meandering, like, like a fun trip through just absurdity. And it just seemed like a fun one. It had a really fun breakdown in the middle. And so we just, and at the time that Bad Hair Day had just come out. And so that was like the cutting edge song.
Right.
Whereas all the rest were kind of more classics.
Now, Everything You Know Is Wrong. That's a really fast song. Does that like difficult to sing?
I don't really remember. I mean, it was one of probably 45 songs we did vocals for in one day. So if I got more than one take, we were already doing better than we expected.
And just to clarify your role in the band, you're the guitar player, you're the singer?
Yes, correct.
That's so cool. How long was Your Mother around before you guys got to the masterpiece, the Weird album?
I think we recorded that in like 96 or 97, and we started when I was in high school in 1990.
Wow.
If we're dating this myself. So yeah, so our drummer was this kid who lived across the street from my best friend. And when I say kid, he was 12. And he had a band, and we could hear in the neighborhood that there was this band practicing somewhere in the neighborhood. And we kept walking around trying to find it, but it turns out they had really like insulated the living room walls, and so it was kind of hard to track down. But one day we realized, hey, it's that house. That's the house. And so we waited outside for who knows how long until they walked out, and it was a death metal band, like a full blown like double bass drum kind of band. And then they walk out, and they're kids. I mean, like, kids. 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. And it was just like, wow, this is pretty amazing. I remember we went in there to, like, wait, hey, can we watch you guys? And at this time, we're probably, like, 16 or something, which in, youth years is, like, a whole generation older than them. And we went in to watch them practice, and the bass player had a bottle of Chloroseptic on his amp, and in between songs, or in between, like, every time he had a break, he'd spray it in his throat and then come back to the microphone and then the drummer was this little 12-year-old kid that was just constantly doing windmills, and every time it got to the double bass parts, you wouldn't hear you'd see his feet moving, but they wouldn't even make contact with the bass drum heads. But anyway, fast forward, we became kind of friends with those kids, and we were looking for a drummer because our drummer had disappeared. And one of the guys in that band said, "Hey, we do covers of your songs. You should try out our drummer." And it was that little kid. And we're like, "Well, okay." And he came in, and he was just phenomenal. He learned everything really fast. He was just like and we were way slower than what he was used to. And but the only thing he listened to was death metal and polka.
Of course.
His grandfather's actually in the Concertina Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And so it runs in his blood. And so, of course, being a polka fan, his absolute favorite artist was Weird Al.
That's
amazing.
amazing.
A side note, he didn't actually speak anything more than like, okay, no, okay, I'm done. That was all he said for 2 years. And so the only time you'd see any sort of like expression from him was when he's playing the drums, or when we'd be on tour, because we'd have to get a note from his mom saying we're taking him across state lines. And we'd play Weird Al polka, usually the polkas. We had all the polkas like on a tape that would just loop, and he would just be bopping around in the back of the van all the polkas. And so anyway, fast forward to now, 30 years later, he is the drummer in Love Songs. And
wow.
He's also was the drummer throughout Your Mother.
And so the Love Songs, that is your current band. So Your Mother's not together anymore.
No. We broke up and became a website.
That's what Dave and I aspire to one day.
Some dreams do come true.
So you record the album. I mean, this is a professional thing. This is not like you just burned this in your dorm room or something. Like, this is a legit album, really great cover art. It's actually on a record label. How does that all come about?
So once we knew that we were going to do it and make a record out of it, and us being a punk band knew we weren't going to sell them anyway, they were just going to end up in one of our closets, like all merchandise does, which is why I can still send you a record sleeve 25 years later. We went ahead and did it, and we didn't sell. In fact, the record wasn't fully manufactured until after the band broke up, probably 4 years later.
Whoa.
So there was never any hope of selling them. But what it did do was it opened us up to a wider audience, which was like the Weird Al nerds. And so once that got out there, and
Enter
people started
Dave and
doing,
I.
like, enter our hosts. And so we started being able to like trade, and it was just like it was a commodity amongst this community that we were so like excited about. And so we gave all the band, each member of the band got a copy of the record, and the Pamela, the Midnight Star, the woman who did the Midnight Star, they got copies, and then we would just make friends over the internet. And so we started putting it on eBay, and we were just selling it for like $5 a copy just to cover cost and shipping. And we just burned through them. And that was really kind of like, I mean, there was of course our friends who are just also Weird Al fanatics and stuff, and it worked out well, but it definitely reached people, and we became friends with people that we never would have otherwise crossed paths with. And for that, I'm very grateful, and also felt like I was contributing something to something that had inspired me. And so I kind of like, churn that back out into the universe.
I mean, absolutely. As a collector, and Dave being one of the biggest collectors in the world, this has a place in every Weird Al collection. It's such a unique piece. It's so well done, and you can tell it's not just, it's not like a corporate. It's not Sony putting out like a tribute record. These are like diehard fans putting out a labor of love, and I think that's what makes it so special.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you think so. I would also like to add the cover of that record is, I mean, the actual artwork that the original artwork is probably 3 feet by 3 feet. It's enormous.
Whoa!
Because it's so detailed. And if for anyone who's listening and they don't know, it's our take on the self-titled Weird Al record, which is that kind of a Mad Magazine style cartoon where it's just full of all sorts of references to like Weird Al and stuff in Weird Al songs and stuff. And we just did a version of our own where basically every little, it looks very, if you're looking at a thumbnail on a Google image search, you'd be hard pressed to tell which one is which.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've got both of them in front of me right now, and the attention to detail is insane. It's unbelievable looking at them side by side. Like, I noticed something on yours, and then I look back at the Al cover. I'm like, oh, that is on Al's cover. Like, you have an Atari, and Al has an Atari or a tape deck or something on his. Like, it's just like, it's so perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's easy for me to say that because I had nothing to do with the artwork, so I can pass those kudos on to somebody else without making it feel like I'm aggrandizing myself. But the guy who did that art was just, I mean, he is also, if I sent you some of his driver's license pictures, it was basically Weird Al through the ages in his photos. And he eventually became a stand-up comic, and he does a lot of that. He's very much in that world. Like,
oh wow.
He was on the trajectory from when he was very young, and he did that cover when he was probably 16 or 17.
Whoa!
And if you look at where it says your mother, inside the letters are a bunch of little faces.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, that's like hundreds of little faces in
yes.
there. It's just, sorry, that's why the record didn't come out until after we broke up, because we kept waiting. Like, we can't just we dubbed cassettes for people and just handed them out to our friends.
Yeah.
But it was like, we want to really make something like legitimate of this, since we put a lot of effort into it. And we're waiting for this guy who kept saying like, no, trust me, it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. And it's just, for years went by, and eventually he sent it, and we're like, oh, whoa, you weren't kidding.
Yeah.
And so that, of all the things, that's the thing that I'm most proud of with that record, is that artwork is really phenomenal.
Where is that 3 foot by 3 foot thing? Is that hanging in your den?
I believe that artist, his name is Alex Cole, Koll. I think he has it rolled up in a tube somewhere.
Yeah.
To quote unquote illustrate him, we went on a tour of the South Pacific. And so again, being an underground punk band, when we would tour, we wouldn't get any of the visas. We wouldn't get any of we wouldn't register any of our merchandise to pay taxes on, all that. We just like went in under the radar and pretended like we're just a bunch of like backpacking Canadians. And so we went to, when we went down to Australia and New Zealand, he went with us. He just started showing up at our shows wearing like floaties and a bathrobe. And like I didn't know him. He knew. I think maybe he knew our drummer or something. He just started showing up to things, and then eventually, and he became like much more fun to watch than us at these shows. So eventually, we just started inviting him to like he was on the thread. Like, oh, we've got it. We're playing here on this date. As if he were a member of the band, right? And eventually he did. So so this particular tour, where he said, okay, we're going, and you guys know the drill. If we would at most we'd bring our guitar in a soft case, and then our drummer would bring maybe a snare drum or something like that, and the rest you just sneak. You're wearing like 15 t-shirts underneath your jacket. You're just trying to like sneak in as much as you can and just go under the radar. And he shows up. He's got 3 duffel bags, and way too much stuff. As much stuff as all of us combined. And it's like we can't put his stuff in a cab and send it home. We're already at the airport. And it's like, all right, we go through. We get to our destination. All of the 3 duffel bags are nothing but costumes. So he, for whatever was a 3-week tour, he brought 1 pair of clothes to wear on the airplane and 3 big duffel bags full of costumes, which he wore the entire time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So he's very much worth checking. He became a competitive air guitarist as well, and his original name was Shred Bagley Jr., but then he changed it to Awesome, and he is one of the most amazing performers in a sea of worthy candidates of that title. So if you look for Awesome air guitar, you'll know when you see him. He's got a huge curly afro. He's amazing. But he's the guy that drew the cover, and he's a huge Weird Al nerd.
Oh, it's amazing. I love that you're just surrounded by Weird Al nerds throughout your life, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a self-fulfilling kind of thing, right?
Well, we definitely want to ask about the air guitar stuff, but I've got so many more questions before we get to that. How big was the run of these vinyls?
I want to say we either 1,000 or 2,000.
Yeah, so really not that many are out there.
I mean, that's a lot for a little punk band.
Well,
but in the scheme of things, I guess it's. I mean, for as far as Weird Al stuff, it's probably a pretty small run.
Yeah, I mean, for me, who has been trying to track one of these down for under a few $100s, it's a low number. I wanted to ask you also about some of the lyric changes in the songs, and did those come from just when you would perform them live, you'd kind of goof around, or what were some of the ideas behind those?
Oh yeah, see that one of them we changed. Did we change one from beer to root beer?
Yes. Yep. And happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We also were huge pinball fanatics, so I think we always went roller skating because I don't know. I have no excuse for that, but. So I think we maybe interjected a couple, and then I think another one was there was something that might have been marginally culturally insensitive. Arabs on the corner buying everything in sight.
Yeah.
That comes to mind. Did I change that?
I went through and I made note of a lot of the things that you
changed.
Yeah,
multinationals on every corner buying everything in sight.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure what you were saying there.
Yeah, the fact that I just remember that is beyond me as well.
Yeah, instead of the monkeys in the Pentagon, I think you said the Illuminati in the Pentagon.
Oh yes, good ear.
You changed it to a jock in the pit looking for a fight. In I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead, you changed it to a John Tesh enhanced CD. There's some really
Which was
there's some really funny ones. Of course, I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead at some point changes to Heavy Metal Is Not Dead in the chorus.
That's right. I forgot about that.
In Everything You Know Is Wrong, of course, you're not driving, you're riding your bike, and it comes out of your underoos. You're guessing Mr. T and Urkel. And then, of course, my all-time favorite, I mean, out of the 6 songs, 3 of which have changes. My all-time favorite is, of course, instead of Jamie Farr, you say John Bermuda Schwartz. Which is just, I love that so much.
Oh, yes. We were so entrenched. That was just all we did. There was about a year. So Brad, the guy, the drummer, the little drummer boy, He again in the 90s, he realized that if he started a zine of his own, he could get free CDs and concert tickets from labels.
Yeah.
And so he would he made it a zine, and it was absolutely content free. There was nothing of any value. It was just to fill pages so he could put something in a sleeve and mail it to a record label. And so he did that, and a surprising number of labels wrote back and said, sure, you want to interview this band? Because it was like the 90s where, there was this big dip back into the underground. And so they must not have even cracked the zine and just went and signed him on as being one of their street team press people. And so he just started. So if he was on for 15 different labels, he would make a new issue of a zine and he'd make 15 copies to show that he did the work. And basically we just wanted free concert tickets and free CDs. However, there were a few times where we really tried to use it for something that we were genuinely wanted access to, and one of those was Weird Al, and somehow he got on Weird Al or Jay Levy's radar, and he became kind of pen pals with Bermuda, them both being drummers, and also big fans of Al, and so that kind of kept escalating till eventually we just followed Weird Al around for a year, like he was the Grateful Dead. Anytime he was somewhere close, I'm close being within a day's drive, we would go see him. And so we kind of got to be on semi-recognizable terms with the band, at least. And yeah, we had it was all Al all the time. That's all I can say.
It sounds familiar. You're speaking to the choir here.
I don't know if you can relate, but we really liked Weird Al.
That's amazing. There was one line in Everything You Know Is Wrong I wanted to ask you about. Instead of Golden Grams, you say Tofuti, and just the Mr. Show fan in me is wondering, is that a Mr. Show reference?
It's part Mr. Show and part we were all either vegetarian or vegan.
Amazing.
At that time, so.
Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation.
I feel like I'm giving a legal deposition of some sort. Your Honor, I was not expecting these questions. I hesitate to answer them.
So I want to talk a little bit more about some of the songs on this album, and I want to actually ask you, was there ever any thought to putting out a full version of Let Me Be Your Hog?
No, but that is definitely dumb enough to consider, which is always reason enough to do anything. We did contemplate making non quote unquote funny versions of Weird Al songs just to make it full circle, but I don't think we ever thought of making Let Me Be Your Hog a full radio length song. What would it? I don't know. I mean, I would really have to stop and think well, why would I want to be a hog? What would the hog mean to that person? I'd really have to dig in there. I'd have to carry a notebook around for a week to try and wrap my head around why I would want to be someone's hog and why that person might consider having me as a hog.
This gives me just an incredible idea. I want to put together a concept album where 15 different bands write their own full-length version of Let Me Be Your Hog. And that would just be the greatest thing in the world, I think.
I'm starting 4 more bands so that I can be in 5 bands on that
Excellent. Yes. I feel like I need to start a band now. I want to be on this too.
So a couple more things to point out, though, that this album, this is a brilliant idea, and I'm surprised no one's ever thought of it before on a Weird Al tribute album. Side A is actually Side Al, and Side B is Side Bermuda.
Ta-da!
So perfect.
And in my copy, you also included this little handy flyer, and on the flyer it has original limited edition cover art, and it is a parody of the Weird Al Yankovic in 3D album. Is that real?
Is it in 2D?
It says in 2D, yes.
Yeah. I think that was before we had any art, and we wanted something to be. I remember we would go to the dollar bin at the record store, buy records just so we could use the sleeve, and then like wheat pasted that 2D cover on the front.
Well, that's something we're gonna have to track down, Ethan.
Yes. Oh my God.
Another thing on this flyer, it also includes a picture of a jacket with a giant Weird Al Yankovic in 3D like back patch on it. Whose jacket is that?
When I was 10, my dad took me to my first concert, which was Weird Al in San Francisco. And shortly thereafter, a few weeks later, he also took me to my next concert, which was REM opening up for Rat. This was 1984. Okay. But anyway, that shirt, that was my concert shirt. And I wore it so much that like everything rotted off except that front logo.
Whoa.
So I then sewed it to the back of my leather jacket.
That's so cool.
That's great.
So I got to ask you about your Weird Al collection. I mean, so looking at the back of the cover, you are standing with no clothes on, covering yourself with Al records and singles, and obviously you had an amazing collection of Midnight Star fanzines. Were you a collector? Do you still have stuff? What sort of things did you collect? I'm very curious.
I think I just probably collected anything, kind of, sort of. It seemed Weird Al was just kind of like obscure enough that it was like fun to find things of his around. But then I think when I got Midnight Star, I remember them taking it so much farther and finding like every news clip that he appeared in, or every like write up, like Weird Al's at the Waukesha County Fair this weekend, and they would put those clips of that in the zine. And I think at that point it's like somebody's already got this covered and they're doing a much better job than I would. But I did find over the years, just kind of like in record bins, random singles, a picture disc somewhere, and just a few different vinyl, like radio only releases, that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Stuff that wasn't meant to be collectible, but that was, not a large run.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything too exciting. I definitely have had, there's one record that I know I probably won't find for any reasonable amount of money, and that's the Another One Rides a Bus on Placebo Records single. Which, do either of you have that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, both of us have that. That has a run of 1,000 as well. So you're right on target with your run of 1,000.
Whatever we can do to align with
right.
Done. So yeah, that's kind of like a record. I'm pretty sure I won't find it. So it kind of, once you find that, or once one finds that grail, then the hunt is over, and you kind of like you lose that enthusiasm. So I kind of know I probably won't find that, so it kind of keeps my eyes always open a little bit.
Well, I will say from experience, having that, once you have that in your possession, you realize that is not the Holy Grail, and that there are much more holier grails to find and collect. It's a very vicious spiral once you get in.
Weird Al should have mentioned that single in eBay.
He really should have.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I look for on eBay is Weird Al stuff. So
yeah.
So Craig, I wanted to ask you, so you sent me, of course, a burned CD of all these songs. Were they ever available, digitally in this form, or was it really just you had to have the record or you had to know you?
Yeah, that was the
Okay.
latter is the case. I'm pretty sure they've been uploaded to YouTube, and I think somebody for a while had a Bandcamp of that record.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it was one of you. But yeah, they're out there, and that's what we want anyway.
Of course.
people to enjoy them.
Of course.
And share in the Weird Al camaraderie.
Would you consider all these years later re-releasing it, putting it out on cassette tape or something ridiculous?
I mean, yeah, if somebody wanted to, we certainly would. And again, it's a not-for-profit venture.
Yeah.
So
all right, we'll figure
you
it
would
out.
have to know that going into it.
I'd love to get a copy with that alternate into D cover.
I'll look and see if I have anything. I'm thinking. I'll look. Yeah, I'm curious myself.
Yeah, well, you don't have to send it to Dave if you find one. I can have it if you want.
I'll just tear it in half.
Yeah, okay.
That works.
All right.
I call it the 2D side.
Right. And I'll break the record in half too.
Yes, okay.
So you each get some.
I'll take side Bermuda.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to split it.
I'll split the vinyl like very cleanly, actually
Yes.
lengthwise, not.
Well, that's what I thought when you said you were going to split it in half.
Interesting. Okay, I guess that's the obvious way I would split it.
Obvious. How else? Another thing I wanted to mention is this week is the first time I got to hear this album. I don't like to listen on YouTube or bootleg stuff. I like to be a purist. I like to listen to an authentic way, for rarities and this sort of thing. So I'm listening to it, and Happy Birthday starts, and there was honestly like 30 seconds where I'm like, did they use the vocals from Happy Birthday? Your voice sounded so much like Al's performance of Happy Birthday.
Oh wow! I thought you meant just the like party noises in the beginning.
No, the actual vocals. I was like, is this Al singing it? It was bizarre. I really had to think about it.
Oh wow! I've outside of anything my mom might say, I've never heard such a compliment.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I just had to ask. So I guess that's not something people say or mistake a lot. Just me.
I mean, definitely people have accused me of copying Al's style, but no one's ever phrased it in a complimentary way.
Oh, well, good.
I don't think, Craig, we can get away without talking about Hot Lixx Hulahan.
Let's talk about him.
Who is Hot Lixx Hulahan, and why am I so fascinated by Hot Lixx Hulahan and his National Air Guitar Championships?
He's such a busy guy. I don't think he would do it. Oh, we should try it. Let's ask him. Hey, Hot Lixx. Yeah? You want to talk about Weird Al and air guitar? Sure. Sorry, I just did my own lead-in.
Let's welcome to the program Hot Lixx Hulahan. Thank you for joining us, Hot Lixx.
Hi. How are you?
You sound so much like Craig, who sounds so much like Weird Al. It's almost like talking to Al himself.
I've made it.
Yeah, you made it. You were the 2006 and 2008 World Air Guitar Champion. How? Why?
Well, as we've already covered, why is a good enough reason to do anything. Why with a question mark exclamation point. The competition was coming through San Francisco back in the wee years of 2006, and people said, "Hey, this thing's happening. This is totally something you would do. You'd be totally into this." What? No, I wouldn't. What do you? You don't know me. And spoiler, they did know me, and so I started. I entered a local air guitar competition, and it was something I wouldn't say that I was proud of at the time. It was just a silly, dumb thing to do, and but I went to this event. And I didn't even tell most of my friends. And in fact, my girlfriend lived right around the corner. And I was like, you can come if you want, but otherwise I'll be back later.
Yeah.
And we got there, and a lot of the other competitors were just kind of like in the same mental boat as I was, and it was actually kind of fun, and you get a little bit of this creative spirit, and this also sort of like, we're about to do something really dumb in front of a few people. And what we didn't realize was that the event had sold out days earlier, and there was a line down the block and around the corner.
Wow.
So even if we had friends who wanted to come, none of them bought tickets because none of them thought that this might happen. So we were faced with a sellout crowd and the kind of like mentality that embodies. And so we had nothing but ourselves to like use as support. And I really found a charge in that. And it was silly. It was absurd. It was fun. It was a little scary and daunting, and ultimately everybody had a really good time. And there was a lot of haters who weren't there, which is basically like the internet at large.
Yeah.
But like if you're there, you realize like this. Once you buy into the joke, and you're like, yeah, I paid money to be here, or yeah, I signed up and got off work early to be here. Once you fess up to making the commitment to do it. It's super fun. It's super ridiculous. Pretty much everybody's in on the joke, and those that aren't are weeded out pretty quickly. And I was hooked, and I won that first competition. So they sent me. I leveled up, and I competed nationally, and I won that. And on the national stage was where you'd compete against people who had won in their respective regions.
Right.
And so I was in more of a cattle call type of event where anybody who wanted to sign up and give it a shot could do it. But then once I got up to that national level where it was people who had actually won in those markets, it was definitely another level of commitment and creativity and enthusiasm. And that was when I was really sold. And I've been totally hooked ever since, although I haven't been very active the last few years. But for a good almost 10 years, that was what I did. In fact, that was actually my main source of income.
Whoa.
Which is possibly the most ridiculous part of all of that.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so you were the U.S. champ in 2006 and 2008, but in 2008 you were also the world champion?
Yes. Once you win in your respective country, you are sent to, every year you're sent to, those representatives are sent to Oulu, Finland, which is a small college town in the north of Finland, which is in the north of Scandinavia, which is in the north of Europe. So it's way up there. And that is wild.
Yeah, wow.
It's a week-long, I always describe it as a week-long multicultural nerd fest where there's just this glass ceiling of cool. So, nobody gets too big for their britches there. Everyone is like at the same level of dorky as you are, but it's like a multicultural version of that. And it's like you spend the whole week in like this summer camp. You're all staying in the same hotel. The hotel knows well in advance not to book families in that hotel during that week. And it's like a big long summer camp. And so by the time the actual competition is held at the end of that week, the competition is like number 4 or 5 on your list of things that you remember about the week.
Wow. How cool.
Yeah. It's really fun. And it's a really fun, energetic, creative cast of characters who get involved in that kind of thing.
Now I gotta ask, are there air groupies?
My stock answer for that is, well, to cut to the chase, yes. But it's my thought that if you do anything where you put yourself out there on a stage doing something that the person watching wouldn't do, there is somebody out there who will appreciate, respect, and do you for that.
Oh, so it's not like it's a real people. It's not just like an air person.
The negative colloquialism is air mattresses. Yeah, I don't use that term.
Right.
And I would also like to point out that I have been in a relationship with my now wife since. Which predates the air guitar days. So,
Okay.
but it's a touring unit where you're on a couple of years. We had a tour bus, and it's like, there is and you're faking the rock and roll lifestyle, which very quickly leads to living a rock and roll lifestyle. Wow. And so a lot of my compatriots definitely entertained that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So this whole culture is so fascinating to me. It's just I didn't even know it existed, and now I'm learning so much about it. Just can you walk us through like the actual competition? Do they give you songs in advance, or do you just make things up as you go along? Do you have to practice? Everything I want to know.
Well, I can give you my perspective, the way the competitions themselves are structured is it's 2 rounds, unless of course there's an air off. But the first round is where the competitor, the person who either signed up or is representing something, you bring your own 60-second track, and you can either like just have a song start at this point in the song and end at this point in the song, or you can craft like a 3-act play within this 60 seconds where you've got a hard beginning, you've got a hard out. Dun, 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 dun. And you can have like a breakdown in the middle. You can combine songs, and you can do all number of things to make yours, to personalize yours. But whatever it is, you get 60 seconds to do that. And there's few rules. One is your air guitar has to be invisible, so you can't use a mic stand or a broom or a person or what have you. And then no one else can be on stage with you. But outside of that, it's pretty much anything goes. And I have seen just about anything go, oftentimes including nothing even resembling air guitar. But whatever it is, after 60 seconds, ding, you're out. And then because it is such a classy sport, it's judged on the Olympic figure skating scale of 4.0 to 6.0. There's a panel of judges who... and it's always some judges of note, like we always have like SNL cast members or musicians or like music journalists and people who would be fun and who are good on a microphone, and they'll often give commentary after performances, and then they ultimately judge the performers. And so after round 1, the scores are tallied, and the top 5 scores advance to round 2. And round 2 is called the compulsory round, and that's where you are given a song that you are unaware of. You're given that song right then. So as the top 5 scores are brought on stage, with 17.7, please welcome to the stage Necromancer, or something like that. They'll come up on the stage, and then once all those 5 performers, those top 5 scores are on stage, they will then say, here is your compulsory track for round 2. So that's the first time those competitors will get to hear that track. Now, it's oftentimes it's a song that they know, but even if they know the song, they don't know the cut of that song. They don't know if it's the live version or the studio version, or if it's, it goes right from the chorus to the guitar solo. They just don't know. So they get that one chance to listen to it, and then they cycle through. 5th place goes first, 4th place goes second, and so on. And so if you were first place going into round 2, you get the advantage of having to hear that edit, upwards of 6 times before you go out on stage. But the other 4 competitors have pulled all the tricks out of their bags, which is, oftentimes will leave you with not much to do that someone else hasn't already done, right?
Right.
So there's the advantages and the disadvantages of going early or later. And then so from there, then round 1 and round 2 scores are added up, and the person with the highest score wins the competition.
Wow. And that's how it goes from San Francisco all the way up to Worlds? Is that just the format, essentially?
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the regional ones, which is kind of like where it gets farmed out to anybody who wants to sign a licensing agreement with whatever air guitar organization is in their region. It sounds like a baseball league, huh?
Yeah.
That's a guess because I don't know anything about baseball. I know more about auto racing because I've seen Cars 1, 2, and 3 than I know about baseball. But they some of the like the regional competitions will do it in a different way just to make it more interesting, or they don't have to fully abide by that. But once you get up to the higher ranks, then that's the standard of how they operate.
Wow.
Now, what songs did you perform to actually win this competition?
The first year I did a Carlos Montoya flamenco / Metallica Shortest Straw mashup, which was fun, and I spent more time thinking about what two songs shouldn't go together than I did planning my routine. And then I did Plane Crash by the Toadies. I think I did a Pat Benatar track in 2007. It was more of a Patrick Benatar, I guess. And I've done a lot over the years. There is one thing, if anybody's listening to this and they're on the internet, I would definitely, if you don't know much about air guitar, even if you do, you don't know this, I would encourage you to check out Windbreaker, which was a halftime show that I being Hot Lixx Hulahan, did with Awesome, a.k.a. Shred Bagley Jr., a.k.a. Alex Cole, the artist who drew the cover of the Weird album, and another gentleman named Cold Steel Renegade. We did a halftime show, and we weren't kind of regulated by any sort of like competition rules. It was just halftime to kind of keep the show going.
Okay.
But it's called Windbreaker, Breaker of Wind. And I think if you YouTube searched Windbreaker air guitar, maybe San Francisco or Hot Lixx, Lixx, I think it will come up, and I think it would give you a good idea of what the art is capable of.
Oh, amazing.
It's super ridiculous. And I'll go a little further. Another thing that I only had very little involvement in, so I can be super proud of it, even though I'm kind of the focal point of it, is there is a Hot Lixx Hulahan the video, and it's a pastiche of I had been doing this halftime routine where I had just done a medley of a bunch of songs one after another, and I just did it by myself in between rounds. And Alex Cole got the idea of making a video out of it, and so he brought me into a like art school basement with a green screen where I had like 2 feet to move on either side, whereas usually I'd be taking up an entire stage running from this side to that side and whatever.
Yeah.
I was given like basically, a 4x4 square that I couldn't really jump or move around in front of a green screen. And I did that. I gave him 10 minutes of footage, and then he turned around 2 years later, which is, as we've learned, on schedule for him, and made this video. And it's phenomenal. It's a real work of art.
Wow.
I highly encourage anybody to check that out. And it's another work of art from Alex Cole, who is one of my closest Weird Al nerd friends. Just to keep us on brand here.
Yes.
Well, now the next obvious question, have you air guitared any Weird Al songs?
In that very video, which I have just mentioned, at the end, I do throw on the guitar solo in This Is a Life. There's a little call out in there. I wonder if it's even, yes, the guitar solo in there. And if you watch the video, you if you watched it and you didn't know any of the backstory, you'd be like, oh, come on. That's straight out of Al TV. Oh, come on. That's totally from UHF. Like the like homage is undeniable.
Oh, there. Cool. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, they're kind of subtle, but they're in there and you can't miss them.
So awesome. So the air guitar led into something pretty amazing. You worked on air guitar, essentially video games like Rock Band.
Yeah. Isn't that so dumb?
It's amazing.
It is super amazing. And like, yeah, I mean, that's the weirdest thing wasn't that there's air guitar competitions, but the things that befall you if you win a competition. That's the crazy part. I mean, like, I rolled into a venue with a sombrero. Like, that was so little effort compared to like a band that has to wheel in like a ton of gear and sound check and do, all this stuff. And like, and then I got rid of the sombrero because it was just too much. Like, I couldn't be bothered to even carry that thing around. but then it leads to these like really crazy things. And, I got a lot of weird offers of performing in a lot of, like, I've performed in a lot of other countries, and I've done a lot of everything from like fun, interesting, like concert festival type things to heavily branded corporate events.
Yeah.
And I went to China more than once, and it was one of those times where I left and I thought, with absolutely no sense of hyperbole, they have never seen anything like that before. And those were like, it's very interesting, some of the things that air guitar has led to.
Now, I got to ask, I guess I don't know how to quantify this, like a devil's advocate point of view. Why does someone want to see someone pretend to play guitar when you can see someone play the guitar?
There's a very deep philosophical question. It is pretty... So, another one of those things, I won that first competition, and the San Francisco Chronicle, which is kind of like a pretty big paper. If you're traveling through Tokyo, that's one of the papers they have at the airport.
Oh,
like one of the
interesting.
US papers, like a big paper.
Yeah.
And they did a full page picture of me. and it was I think it was at the time when there was a bombing in the London subway. And I think what it is that there is so little gravitas to air guitar and what it represents, and the sense of like freedom and carelessness that it sort of like brings to mind, that in the heavy news cycle, it's a super breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And I think
sure.
people very much, again, like once you actually commit and go to this thing and you realize like, it is only fun. That is all this is based on. Like there's no room for it having any sort of like pretension about it all. And I think people really kind of tap into that. Once you buy into the joke, like it's not funny anymore. It's just a good time.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
And so I think, but when you watch a band, so often you're like, oh, you're trying so hard. This is so hard to watch. And then one of my friends said that it was like it's really a distillation of what rock and roll is all about. It's the posturing, it's the rocking out, and it's the relatability of rock and roll being like a working man's genre of entertainment. So we can all sort of relate to it, and we can relate to that, like, bumping our head to, like, if a song comes on and you start tapping your foot, that's only 3 steps before you get to air guitar, right? Like you hear the music, it possesses you, and you start like responding to it. So anybody who's danced knows it can relate to that sort of thing. So when you see people doing it in a much more like a grand, ridiculous, bombastic fashion, then it becomes entertaining to watch somebody else do something that you can kind of relate to.
Yeah.
I think that may be, I think that might be a little easier to digest and sell yourself on than some band you don't know of or care about, or
right.
you heard their bass player voted for Trump or something, like some reason you don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Like there's so many of those things, whereas air guitar is really pretty light.
Yeah.
In that regard.
I want to see you do air guitar. That's, I want to go to a show, but I want you to be headlining it, I think.
My guitar playing before I started competing in air guitar was once described as, it looks like he's just playing air guitar.
Amazing.
Well, I was going to ask you, how different is playing a real guitar versus playing air guitar?
Well, air guitar is a lot freer. However, if you were to watch me play guitar, you would realize that I don't much care for I'm much more technically proficient with the air guitar than I am with their guitar. Or as the Rock Ness Monster calls it, the fake air guitar.
I love it. Do you ever have to tune an air guitar?
You could, but that's one of those kind of tropes that you see early on.
Yeah.
And then kind of everybody at home was like, oh, I'll tune it. oh, that'd be such a great idea. And then like by the third time
Yeah.
someone's done that,
Yeah.
you realize, yeah, it's a little easy go-to. It's a great start though, because if you're thinking down that path, it will lead you to even greater things.
I can't wait to just dive in and learn everything about air guitar now.
I will be happy to send you some of my favorite links.
Yes.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Now, are there any like taboo songs like, oh, this guy's doing Freebird again, or anything to that?
There
degree?
are, I mean, doing things like Van Halen Eruption is is cliche.
Yeah.
And really, if you're going to do Eruption, chances are you're just going to try and have your fingers match what the music is doing, which is really only 1/3 of what people want to see at an air guitar competition. And that's, I mean, there's the technical merit, which is how much what you're doing looks like the music that you're hearing. And then there's also the stage presence, which is how much you're using or abusing your environment.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that is a thing that they call airness, which is best described as being like pornography. You can't define it, but you know it when you see it.
Wow. So you said you've kind of taken a bit of a break from air guitar. I mean, even now, how involved are you in the community? I assume you're a celebrity in the air guitar community.
I mean, I wouldn't use that term, but I do think that I'm kind of an elder statesman, only because I was in it during a very prolific era. There was a documentary, which is also highly recommended, called Air Guitar Nation. And I competed the year that was released, and so I ended up being kind of the poster boy for the theatrical release. So I'd get like a Playboy bunny. I would get sent out in like a pink Jeep to all of the screenings, and be part of the like Q&A and performance aspect of that. And I think over the next probably 3 years was where it really hit like a cultural high watermark. And not to say that it's not still going now, because it absolutely is. But I think around that era was when it had reached a very high level of popularity, and where you could, we were always selling out venues and getting a lot of weird offers and sponsorship deals and all that kind of stuff. And so I think I was kind of lucky because I got a lot of FaceTime in that era. And so I think people probably, if I was recognized, it would be because of that. I had the benefit of being around during that time.
Right. That makes sense. I would love to hear about your current project. You're currently in a band called The Love Songs. What can you tell us about that?
It is to keep in the theme here. It was what I started after the band Your Mother broke up. And so it was the 12-year-old polka listening death metal drummer and I decided to kind of keep playing and call the band Love Songs so that I could keep a long history of very ungoogleable band names. And so and then also we thought like, and we were still like, we played in the underground punk community. And so we played with a lot of bands that would never even use the word love in a song, much less a song title, much less a band name. And so we thought, well, if we just come out like that you can't be disappointed. Like, dude, we told you. You saw the flyer. You can't be disappointed or upset because you knew what was coming. But then, outside of that or beyond that, if they liked us, it was kind of like, oh, they were pretty good, which is pretty much all we could hope for.
Wow. So you guys
we've been doing that for 20 years now, and that's
wow.
It's you wouldn't guess it based on our level of success, but much like so many other things we've already talked about, it is a labor of love, and it's just a fun thing that we like to do. I'm trying to think where the Weird Al connections are. This band has more connections with Metallica. Not that they know that, But there's definitely been a running theme of Metallica on every record. So that gives you a good point of reference. Is the band is made up of Weird Al aficionados who are also obsessed with Metallica.
So do you have a Metallica album of Metallica cover songs?
A Metalbum. What do we? No, I don't think we went so far as to relate to them musically.
Yeah. Okay.
more just every other aspect of them.
Of course. So has the Love Songs covered any Weird Al songs?
I think in the early days we might have done State of Shock.
Okay.
which Weird Al did polka style in Polkas on 45, maybe Polka Party. Anyway, one of those. But outside, I don't think so. I think this band, instead of the real reason your mother wasn't so widely known, is not because nobody cared. It was because we infringed on so many copyrights over the years that it would be near impossible to ever upload even a single song. Because even in middles of songs, we would just drop a riff from another band because it seemed like, oh yeah, let's put a Slayer riff in here right after this jazz breakdown. And I think but that was all very, that was your mother's kind of approach. And then I think with Love Songs, instead of like actually taking a Slayer riff, we just played something more in that style.
Okay.
Kind of like how Weird Al does style parodies.
Right.
Maybe it's more similar, akin to that. And so I think that's what this would be, which I guess is kind of an evolution of what the younger, more law unabiding your mother would have done.
Right.
now we're grown-ups.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm so excited to check out thelovesongs.com for information on that new band. And is there anywhere where you can learn information about your mother?
I think yourmother.com still exists. In fact, I'm sure it does. I don't know what's on it or if anyone's maintained it. For many years, there was a live web feed because that was our thing, is no longer a band, now just a website. And so you put a webcam on an open build your own PC tower, which of course never changed because a computer tower is not gonna. Maybe a light bleeped once or twice, but so I know that was the big draw for a couple of years. Who knows where we're at now? I do remember we did a kind of like pre-Onion, but very Onion adjacent. We had a news section where we would post fake news about ourselves. And I remember there was a time, and this goes back to like more Metallica stuff. The very first Your Mother demo was called Pasture of Muppets, which is a spoonerism of Master of Puppets, one of the earlier Metallica classics. But so somehow I think that if you add all these things together, it makes the story somehow somewhat believable. But one of the articles that we had posted was very, very randomly, Alan, who is our bass player, Alan the Genius, quits Your Mother and joins Metallica. And it was a joke about because he could never join Metallica and his favorite bands were Devo and Moxie Fruvis. So like he's not in line to join Metallica at any level. Just absolutely like coincidentally, Jason Newsted leaves Metallica at that same moment. And so all this searching goes out on the internet about like, Metallica bass, whatever. Somehow our article gets picked up. And then the logo on our website was a YM, like in a kind of a shape of a globe, like a really poorly made 1990s graphic of a globe that's out of a Y and an M for your and mother. very quickly this gets turned into YM Magazine declares Alan Kiesemeyer new bass player of Metallica, which just hits the wire and it goes everywhere. So, and then I remember even Metallica addressed it, or the Metallica.com addressed that kind of thing. And it was like, well, our job's done here. Sit back and watch the chaos.
That's amazing.
Yourmother.com did do that for a short time. I feel like yourmother.com's probably not the worthy of much talking.
I'm on it right now, and there is an option to purchase like a giant bundle of Your Mother songs, including the 6 Weird Al songs from the Weird album. So I think there's a great opportunity for people who want to hear all of these songs as well as the other Your Mother songs. Head over to yourmother.com and pick them up.
That's absolutely true. And they are, if you are savvy enough, you can read the links, and there's actually a free download of those. And that's a very good point. We discourage it. If you do download the free version, it does come with a bonus track, which seems counterintuitive, but the bonus track is just us calling you a cheapskate. In song.
Right. Wow. So amazing. I love all this stuff. Craig, this has been such a blast. Thank you so much, for collecting and preserving all those amazing copies of Midnight Star for my collection unknowingly. Thank you for your love of Weird Al and all these amazing passion projects you've put out and brought to the world. But mainly, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. This has been such a blast chatting with you.
Oh man, I was so looking. Actually did that thing where I would respond to you, and I was like, "No, there's too many exclamation points in this response. Scale it back, Craig. Come on, reel it in." Very excited to dive into the deep end, and just I didn't know what we were going to talk about, but I knew it was going to be a lot of Weird Al, and so very excited about that. Also, we just moved, and I've been lugging around so many boxes of things that I'm not getting the enjoyment out of it that these things deserve. And one of those things was that collection of Midnight Stars. So I'm super, this is like the best case scenario of what happened to those.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I will take such
and
good care
then that
of them.
record, that record was again like a little love letter to other Weird Al fans. And here it is so many years later, still functioning as that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, thank you for, noticing it and reaching out to me.
Well, thank you for sending it to me. Thank you again.
I've already followed at Hot Lixx on Twitter, and I'm ready to go check out the Windbreaker video as soon as this episode is over.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Craig Billmeier, a.k.a. Craigums, a.k.a. The Love Songs, a.k.a. Hot Lixx Hulahan. Thank you.
I've been called so many worse things.
It was so much fun to have him on, and I want to extend a huge thank you to Greg.
Don't you mean Craig?
No, I mean Greg.
Who's Greg?
Greg, the nice gentleman who held the door for me at Burrito this last week.
This week's episode brought to you in part by vegan Mexican restaurant Burrito in Troy, New York, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla Burrito. Come on down to Burrito and Burrito your Burrito. Find them at burritosquare.com and at burritosquared on Instagram. And remember, not every burrito is a burrito, but every burrito can be burritoed.
Each and every week, we bring you amazing content like our interview with Craig, absolutely free. And we don't ask much from you in return. All we ask is that if you enjoy this podcast and you want us to keep making more quality weekly podcasts for your entertainment, please support us over at patreon.com/2000inch. You can support us there for as little as $1 a month.
And another way to support the podcast is by visiting and purchasing something from our official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast shop. You can head over to shop.2000inch.com from everything from pillows to t-shirts to tote bags. And hey, our friend Trevor even posted a great picture this week wearing an official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast t-shirt.
I'm so jealous of that t-shirt. Where can I get one?
Well, Dave, you can get one by heading over to shop.2000inch.com.
A huge thank you to all of our listeners, all of our subscribers, and everyone who follows us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 2000inch, and to all of those who have joined our Facebook group. And of course, a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/2000inch. And an extra special, huge thank you to Greg for holding the door for me at Burrito. And of course, our amazing guest this week, Craig Billmeier.
Find us online at 2000inch.com and make sure to share our posts, tell your friends about the podcast, and leave us messages to play on the air by calling 347-SPATULA. That hotline's open 27 hours a day. And this just in, we're now available on Pandora.
Also, you can subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or the podcast app of your choice. Subscribe now to make sure you do not miss a single episode or any insightful conversations about your mother.
From everyone at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we urge you to stay happy, healthy, safe, and to squeeze all the Charmin you can when Mr. Whipple's not around.
And if you find yourself with a lot of free time this week, you can head over to 2000inch.com and listen to every single one of our back episodes there, including the bonus episodes. See you next week.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 46-inch. Ever since we set up this interview mere minutes ago, I know Dave has been wanting to ask you about a certain aspect of your career.
Can we stop for a second and point out that you used the word career so that we may later laugh at that?